At age 17, the world saw a fairy tale princess. Everyone thought royal life meant endless parties and perfect love. But the cameras missed the truth. A mother screaming in a palace hallway, a prince drowning in silence, a daughter learning to smile while her heart cracked open. 3 tragedies, 1 hidden scandal, and the woman who carried all of it alone. The real story of Princess Caroline isn't about crowns or glamour. It's about a survival so brutal the tabloids refused to print it. Here is what they hid. September 13th, 1982. A narrow mountain road above Monaco. The pavement is slick from hours of rain. A 1971 Rover P6 3500 struggles up the steep curve. Behind the wheel is Princess Grace, former Hollywood star, beloved mother of 3. Next to her is daughter Stephanie, age 17. They are returning from a lunch in the French countryside. Simple day, simple drive. Then the car leaves the road. It plunges 120 feet down the hillside, rolling, crushing, tearing through olive trees and rocks. When rescuers arrive 20 minutes later, Stephanie is alive, bruised but breathing. Grace is unconscious, her body twisted against the dashboard. The world calls it an accident, bad weather, faulty brakes, a tragic mistake. But here is the detail the newspapers buried. 2 hours before the crash, Princess Grace had a fight with her eldest daughter, Caroline, age 25, beautiful, headstrong, in love with a man named Philippe Junot, a French playboy 10 years older, already divorced twice, known for gambling debts and late-night scandals. Grace hated him, begged Caroline to end the relationship. Caroline refused. The argument was loud enough that palace staff heard Grace scream, "You will destroy this family." Those were the last words between mother and daughter. Caroline never got to say goodbye. She arrived at the hospital as doctors tried to revive Grace. The princess died the next day. Caroline held her hand for 4 hours as machines beeped and faded. For 40 years, Caroline has replayed that fight. Every word, every silence, every second she could have said something softer. Do you think a last angry word counts as something you can never take back? Tell us below. The crash didn't just kill a princess. It sealed Caroline's guilt behind a diamond smile. She learned to wave at cameras, to attend galas, to pretend the conversation on that September morning never happened. But the crash was only the first hit. What came next would make Caroline wish she'd died in that car too. Here is the angle that nobody in the media is focusing on. 3 days before the crash, Princess Grace told a palace servant something strange. She said, "If I die, Caroline will destroy everything I built." The servant thought it was stress, maybe exhaustion. Grace had been fighting migraines for weeks. But the words were too specific, too cold. When Grace died, that sentence became prophecy. Caroline married Philippe Junot in 1978, 4 years before the crash. Grace refused to attend the wedding. She called it a funeral in white. The marriage lasted less than 2 years. Junot was caught in nightclubs with other women. He sold their private photos to German magazines. He bragged about Caroline's tears in interviews. But the real nightmare started after Grace died. Caroline's second marriage was to Stefano Casiraghi, an Italian businessman. He was kind, gentle. He gave her 3 children. For 6 years, Caroline almost believed she was happy. Then Stefano died. A speedboat accident off the coast of Monaco. October 1990. He was thrown into the water at 60 miles per hour. Drowned before rescuers arrived. Caroline was pregnant with their 3rd child. She gave birth 2 months later, alone, in a hospital room with no family beside her. The palace whispered again. Caroline brings disaster to every man she touches. Her 3rd marriage, to Prince Ernst August of Hanover, was the cruelest. He was drunk at their wedding. He made fun of her grief in front of guests. He once told a reporter, "Caroline is damaged goods. Everyone knows it." But that is only half the story. Because the curse Grace predicted wasn't about Caroline's husbands. It was about something worse. Something that would take decades to surface. To understand Caroline's breaking point, you have to understand her 4th child, Pierre. Born in 1997. From the beginning, Pierre was different. He didn't cry like other babies. He didn't reach for toys or smile at strangers. By age 2, he still hadn't spoken a single word. Doctors gave the diagnosis in 1999. Autism spectrum disorder, moderate to severe. Caroline hid the truth for 7 years. She told reporters Pierre was slow to develop. She pulled him out of school photos. She kept him inside the palace walls where cameras couldn't find him. Her husband, Ernst August, had no patience. None. He called Pierre broken. He said it at dinner tables, at Christmas parties, in front of Caroline's other children. Once, Pierre had a meltdown during a formal reception, screaming, rocking, covering his ears. Ernst grabbed the boy's arm and dragged him to a closet, locked him inside. Caroline found Pierre an hour later. He had scratched his own face bloody. That night, Caroline made a decision. She would protect Pierre at any cost, even if it meant losing everything else. Even if it meant war with her own husband. She started driving Pierre to therapy herself. 6 in the morning, 3 hours each day. She learned the difference between a sensory overload and a tantrum. She read 47 books on autism. She fired 3 palace doctors who called Pierre unfixable. But Ernst August saw this as weakness. He told Caroline she was coddling a defect. He started legal proceedings to take custody of Pierre, not because he wanted the boy, but because he wanted to hurt her. The court case lasted 14 months. Ernst leaked Caroline's medical records to the press. Her anxiety diagnosis, her sleeping pill prescriptions, her history of panic attacks. The tabloids had a field day. Mad princess loses son. If you want to know the truth behind more royal family secrets the media won't touch, hit subscribe now. Caroline won custody, but the victory felt like poison. Her brother Prince Albert called her unstable in a private letter that somehow reached the newspapers. Her friends stopped visiting. The palace stopped inviting her to official events. She was a princess with no kingdom, a mother fighting alone, a woman the world had decided was crazy. And then came the night on the balcony. The years 2008 to 2009 nearly killed Caroline. 3 disasters hit her like waves in a storm. First disaster, Ernst August's revenge. He hired a private investigator to follow Caroline. The man photographed her crying in parking lots, screaming alone in her car, falling asleep on Pierre's bedroom floor. Ernst sold these images to Paris Match magazine. The headline, Princess Caroline's Secret Breakdown. Caroline didn't sue. She didn't fight. She just stopped leaving her house for 3 months. Second disaster, her brother's betrayal. Prince Albert publicly sided with Ernst August. He told the Vatican, which was considering annulling Caroline's marriage, that she was psychologically unfit to make legal decisions. Albert later admitted this was a lie, but the damage was done. Caroline and Albert didn't speak for 6 years. They passed each other at state dinners like strangers on a subway. Third disaster, the death of Sister Marie. Marie was a nun, a small woman with gray hair and thick glasses. She met Caroline at a church in 1995. They became unlikely friends, a princess and a nun. Marie was the only person Caroline trusted completely. In February 2009, Marie suffered a brain aneurysm. She died in her sleep. No warning. No goodbye. Caroline sat alone in the hospital chapel from midnight until dawn. 6 hours. No one came to find her. Her phone didn't ring. The palace press office announced she was resting at home. The truth? She was begging God to let her disappear. Just fade away. Stop being the woman whose mother died angry, whose husbands left or died or betrayed her, whose brother called her crazy, whose son needed her more than she had left to give. The chapel was cold. Caroline's knees hurt from kneeling. At 5 a.m., a janitor found her and asked if she needed help. She said, "I don't think anyone can help me." But rock bottom had one more floor, and it had a name. December 12, 2009. A cold night in Monaco. The temperature dropped to 38 degrees. The Mediterranean wind rattled windows across the palace. Caroline stood on her penthouse balcony at 3 a.m. She wore a silk robe, bare feet on cold stone. The railing came up to her waist, low enough to step over easily. Below her was a 7-story drop to a concrete courtyard. Her phone buzzed on the nightstand inside. Ernst August's lawyers. Another custody threat. Another demand for psychiatric evaluation. Another headline waiting to happen. Her brother Albert had given an interview that morning. He said Caroline was difficult to love. The words played in her head like a broken record. Difficult to love. Caroline gripped the railing. She thought about her mother, about the fight, about the words she never got to take back. She thought about Stefano drowning in dark water, about Pierre asleep inside, unaware his mother was calculating distances. Later, she would tell a priest, "I counted how long it would take to fall. 3 seconds, maybe 4. I thought about whether I would feel the ground or just stop." Her security guard, a man named Jean-Louis who had worked for the family for 22 years, heard the balcony door open. He found Caroline at 3:17 a.m. Her knuckles were white. Her face was dry. No tears, just emptiness. He didn't speak. He just stood beside her until she stepped back inside. 2 hours of silence. Then Caroline asked for tea. Then she went to check on Pierre. The palace never released a statement. The newspapers never found out. But Caroline's private journal, leaked years later in a French biography, contained this sentence: "I didn't choose to live. I just forgot to die." Maybe you've also felt like everyone in your family turned against you at the worst time. You're not alone. Share your story below. That night was the closest Caroline ever came to becoming another royal tragedy. But something shifted in the darkness. Something she didn't expect. She got angry. Not at Ernst. Not at Albert. Not at her mother's ghost. At herself. For believing she deserved any of it. Caroline did something no royal had done before. She stopped fighting publicly. No lawsuits. No interviews. No denials. No dramatic exits. She simply left. In 2010, Caroline sold her Monaco penthouse. She donated the money to autism research, $4.2 million. Then she moved to a small farmhouse in rural France. No palace. No staff. No security detail. Just 5 rooms, a vegetable garden, and a gravel driveway. Her neighbors were farmers and retired teachers. They had no idea who she was. One woman asked Caroline if she used to be an actress. Caroline laughed, the first genuine laugh in years, and said something like that. She drove Pierre to therapy every morning at 6 a.m. She packed his lunches. She learned to cook simple meals, eggs, pasta, soup. She gardened. She walked the property lines at sunset, watching the light change over wheat fields. In 2014, a French documentary crew tracked her down. They expected a broken woman. Instead, they found Caroline buying bread at a village market. No makeup, gray hair showing at her temples, a soft, tired smile. The interviewer asked if she missed royal life. Caroline said, "I used to think survival meant winning. Now I know it means waking up, getting out of bed, making breakfast, doing it again tomorrow. That's the real fight." That same year, Pierre graduated from a specialized high school for neurodivergent students. He walked across the stage in a blue cap and gown. He turned to the audience, small, just 47 people, and spoke 3 sentences. "Thank you for not giving up. Thank you for believing. I love you." Caroline cried harder than at any funeral, harder than the night on the balcony, harder than watching her mother die. She didn't wipe her tears. She let them fall. Right there, in front of everyone. The palace called her eccentric in a private memo that later leaked. The people who knew her real story called her something else. A warrior. Today, Princess Caroline is 68 years old. She appears in public maybe twice a year. The tabloids call her reclusive. They print unflattering photos and speculate about her health. Here is what they don't tell you. In 2020, Caroline was diagnosed with an autoimmune disease. The name is complicated systemic sclerosis. It attacks connective tissue. It makes bright light and loud noise physically painful. Some days, she cannot open her hands fully. Other days, she cannot swallow. She spends most hours in a dark room, reading, listening to opera, writing letters she never sends. Pierre visits every Sunday. He is 27 now. He lives independently, something doctors said would never happen. He works at a bookshop in Lyon. He calls his mother every night at 8 p.m. They don't talk about the past. Pierre told a journalist once, "We talk about what we're reading, about the weather, about soup recipes. That's enough." But here is the secret the palace still hides, the one that would break the fairy tale for good. In 2018, Caroline wrote a 200-page letter to her mother Grace, by hand, on cream-colored stationery. In it, she wrote, "I finally forgive you, and I finally forgive myself." She drove to the hillside where the crash happened. The road has changed, wider now, safer barriers, but the spot where the rover plunged down is still marked by a small cross. Caroline buried the letter there, sealed in a metal box, 3 feet deep. She covered it with dirt and olive leaves. A palace gardener reported finding disturbed ground the next week. He mentioned it to a supervisor. The supervisor told him to forget what he saw. Caroline has never confirmed the letter exists. When a French reporter asked her about it in 2022, she smiled and said, "Some secrets belong only to the dead." Maybe that's the real truth about Monaco's Princess Caroline. Not a tragedy, not a cautionary tale, but a woman who learned to carry her guilt like old luggage, heavy, yes, but no longer crushing her. She survived her mother's curse. She survived her husband's cruelty. She survived the night on the balcony. And in our next video, we reveal what Princess Caroline's brother Prince Albert tried to erase from history. Subscribe so you don't miss the truth they buried.